Welcome to our second installment of our Hendrick Hudson Parent University, where we are grounding our discussions in the anchor text of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens by Stephen Covey. And we begin every meeting here at Hendrick Hudson in our mission statement. This, of course, is hoping students achieve their maximum potential and contribute to society, particularly with this evening's conversation about the public victory of what Covey calls it. This is our administrative and staff theme for the year, Actions for the Future, where primarily we are looking at a future-focused environment where we are helping our students have that experience a nurturing, accessible environment, but it also comes trust through follow-through. The establishment of a parent university was a key action item of the district's strategic plan, which ends next year. So this is one of those aspects or actions that we're doing to address an item in the strategic plan as well. And it's also primarily because if we look at our objectives, it's good for our community. And the whole purpose behind this series is to help continue to foster a collaborative relationship between our parents and the school. And I'm going to talk about a lot of things in the public victory today that may seem like parenting advice, and I'll give a disclaimer right now. I don't seek to be a parent who gives advice. I have 4 kids. And I struggle all the time on being a good parent. So part of this is also for me to remind myself. These are objectives of the overall workshop. And when we look at context today, the key thing here is last session, which was not videotaped, but I will sit down at my desk and do a videotape version of it in case you're joining this workshop online after it's been done. Tonight, we're moving to the public victory, whereas last meeting, we were focused primarily on the personal victory. And that was supporting students in identifying their own mission, their own trajectory in life, and arming parents with tools to help students engage in that. So we're really looking at how we can support our students to lead a successful, happy life where they can relate to others in a modern, complex world. The habits that we will be addressing today are habit 4, think win-win, which moves away from a competitive me versus you mindset and encouraging parents and teens how to seek mutual benefit and cooperation in their daily interactions. Part of the public victory, as Covey argues, is also habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood, where we shift the parenting instinct from immediately trying to fix the problem or judge the outcome to practicing empathetic listening and validating the teen or the child's emotional truth. And then the final habit of the public victory is synergy. And it was a buzzword that was thrown around, particularly in the late 90s and early 2000s in business. But I think Covey does a good job contextualizing it. I just think it was like one of those old radio songs that was played too much on the radio from our youth that we don't like to listen to anymore because it was overplayed. But I think in the context of supporting our teens, Covey does a good job of doing that. And in terms of synergy, Covey sees that as celebrating individual differences, learning to collaborate as a family team, and to find the third why, those solutions, or the third way, the solutions that are better than what either the parent or the child could have come up with alone. And of course, all of this is in the context of your own family dynamic is different than mine, is different than your neighbors down the street, and your own child's development is individualized. So keep that context in mind that this is just suggestions. If you're struggling with any of these areas, we want you to pick and choose from these as you see fit to assist your own family dynamics. So talking about that change from the personal victory to the public victory, as Covey calls it, Covey would convey, well, that's a good alliteration there. Covey would convey that to support our teens and children, we must recognize that they cannot lead others until they lead themselves. That's why we started with the personal victory, setting a good mission statement. How do we help our children develop those mission statements and use that as their true north? This session will help our students move away from I am responsible for my own personal mission to we are effective together. And as parents, we can model this for our students by shifting from giving orders or giving directions to inviting cooperation from our child. Obviously, I'm sure like in your house, you have certain must-haves or non-negotiables. This would be on those areas where we're trying to where we can, build that cooperation with our teen, because you're modeling for them the ability to do that with others throughout their life. The first topic I want to talk about would be starting with, before we even get into habits, would be the emotional bank account. And I wanted to start that by a recent personal story that I had with my son, Michael. I have 3 boys and a girl. They range, Patrick is 15, Sam is 13, Michael Jr. is 6, and Stefania is 3. So we have a good wide range of kids, and I continue to make mistakes with all of them. Talking about the emotional bank account, which is what Covey refers to before you even start talking about the public victory, but how we build trust with students, with our children. A couple nights ago, my son eats nothing but carbs. He grazes all day long, and I'm, of course, thinking immediately, he's going to have poor eating habits. He's going to not be healthy as he's eating all this processed food. I mean, Pringles. He has family members who love him and support him, so they buy him donuts every day. I pack his lunch in the morning. I try to throw in with today he had Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Pringles, Milano cookies, a regular bag of chips. I'm trying to think what else. There's chocolate animal crackers, and I threw in like a clementine.
The clementine came back.
And I'm not there when it comes back, but my wife says, I see it on the counter the next day. The one that I sent is coming back. So of course, I'm in that mindset of trying to fix the problem, teach him good eating habits by literally force feeding it to him. I tell him he's into hockey, he's into sports, he's into baseball and hockey right now. And he was struggling with his energy level at the end of like an 1.5 hour hockey scrimmage. And I said, Michael, it's because you don't eat protein. If you ate a thing of protein, your world would change. Yep. And so my wife makes fantastic chicken cutlets, homemade, right? And I wanted him to eat a chicken cutlet. And I very rarely stoop to bribery, but I needed to here. Yep. So I said, Michael, if you eat that entire chicken cutlet and you don't lie with your mom when my back is turned, I will get you a V-Bucks card for Fortnite. So it's like it's fake currency within Fortnite. Yes, he plays Fortnite. Judge me all you want, okay? His older brothers played it. He wanted to be like his older brothers. He does it in a controlled environment. The first time we got him a Fortnite account, my debit card got hit with a $600 expense because he went on and he didn't realize he was buying it. So luckily we got that refunded, and he knows that he has permission now.
We took the hit.
Oh, you took the hit? Do you mind telling me? Was it close to mine?
And he got punished for a whole week. And electronics, no, maybe
Yeah.
it was 2 weeks. Electronics were all gone for the week.
Yeah.
No TV, nothing. For a whole week. I think it might have been 2 weeks I made him. So he came home every day. He knew.
It's a horrible feeling. Mm-hmm. And then you feel bad. But, I mean, hundreds of dollars on things that don't even give you a competitive edge in the game. So,
$300
yes. This was a motivating factor for him because he knows he doesn't get any money in that unless he gets it through a gift card that we have to load. So I said, if you eat one chicken cutlet, you will get a $20 V-Bucks card. And so he did.
It's a big conversion.
I know. I'm trying to.
I did too. And I said you had to play in a baseball card for your friends. And
Right.
The game didn't even happen. So $10 for free.
So I entered into that agreement with him. And I realized something. After he ate, I was like, good job. I still see a piece there. Mom will be the judge. She, of course, gave it to him. So he was supposed to get a V-Bucks card. And he said, Dad, can you load my V-Bucks card? And it was a Sunday night, and it was late. And I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. I start to go, and he do the bedtime routine, so it's a struggle, especially with a 3-year-old. And, Dad, are you going to load my V-Bucks card? Yeah, I'll do it first thing in the morning. It went on for about 3 days. And in preparing for this session, I realized I didn't necessarily make a withdrawal from what we're going to learn is the emotional bank account. Mm-hmm. But I basically broke the piggy bank because I didn't follow through on my end of the deal. And it may be a little thing, but I try to always put myself in his shoe that he did it. Why am I not following through on my end? So that's what we're talking about here. The concept that whether we know this obviously in most of our professions, that in our job, we build relationships because relationships are what we lean on during the tough times. These aren't our family members. These are people we interact with And we may have to ask them to do things that they don't want to do, but if they trust us, they will be more than likely to do that, right? That's a genuine known leadership approach or collegial approach. Covey argues it's the same with our children, that you have to make deposits in their emotional capital or their emotional bank account in order to make withdrawals when times get tough or when those tough decisions come. And so Covey argues that you should take time to formally address how you make those deposits. And so if we had children here, this is an exercise you can do at home. Take 5 minutes to jot down things that you have done this week to build trust with your youngster or in the parent-child relationship. And then think about one small deposit you could make before going to school tomorrow. And I have this exercise up here for people to take away, to ask questions about right now, like all the activities we're going to go through. If we had more people, obviously, it'd be, we have one dedicated community member joining us. I know it's a busy time of year. So if you are joining us online, this is a framework that you can do. My wife and I do a State of the Union address every Sunday night. How are things going between us? And I'm going to suggest that we do something similar for our children, where we can talk about how we can make deposits into their emotional bank account. So another thing that you can do is you can do an audit. You can review recent deposits as a parent and child together, identify a common withdrawal. Where did you take out of your children's bank account, emotional bank account, and where did they take out of yours? It's probably pretty easier to talk about where they depleted you emotionally, but focus on the concept of a trusting relationship. Like I could argue that my 3-year-old, as soon as she wakes up in the morning, sees that it's me home and the mom has already seen patients, and she says, "I want mama," that automatically takes away from my emotional bank account, but not the trusting relationship. And obviously with a 3-year-old, trust is built on different levels than it is with a first grader or a third grader. So, and then you can even commit to one deposit you do as a parent-child relationship that you promise to do for each other. So just a suggestion on if this is where you'd like to start, if you want to follow Covey's approach there. Your goal is to keep that balance high in the emotional bank account so that you must have, when you have hard talks, that the account is solvent, right? My wife and I very rarely get to watch TV together. We've been lately on a Tyler Sheridan kick. So we're talking about shows like Yellowstone or The Madison, which I can't stand. But we've been watching The Lioness. And there was a series, I'm not going to ruin the story for you, but there was a point in the show where the father is a high-pressure cardiac surgeon and the mom is a high-value CIA agent. And so they have very little time to parent. And the daughter experiences, it's a teen daughter experiences 2 traumatic events right back to back. And the female character of the mom said, "My father and I tried to prepare you for this. This conversation is not about that anymore because you're now living the consequences. So we've crossed that threshold. We don't talk about what could happen to you. We talk about how to support you now that it's happened." And that struck a tone with me. So even from TV, we can sometimes get good parenting thoughts. Covey talks. What's that?
Go back to the Cosby's and they
Yep.
have some great lessons.
I raised myself on the Cosby Show. I found myself going through some, when I was doom scrolling at 2 o'clock in the morning a couple nights ago and I couldn't sleep. I was doom scrolling through sitcom show theme songs from the 80s. Brought back some good memories. So, yeah. Covey talks about, as part of the public victory, this win-win. That we should think of a win-win. And it reminded me of a book that I recently read as part of my doctoral program called The Sum of Us. And Covey says that in a relationship, we need to change our paradigm as a way to solve conflicts when they arise with parents and children. There's often this, well, I have to tell them they're right, or I have to tell them that the parents are right and I'm wrong. And Covey argues that we should shift that it doesn't have to be who's right and who's wrong, or who's a winner, who's a loser. Covey talks about this abundance paradigm versus what can be referred to as a zero-sum paradigm. An abundance is an approach in conflict. A paradigm is a context of how things are done, right? It's a way to view things. The abundance paradigm is that in conflict resolution, there doesn't have to be a winner or a loser. We can work to find where we both win. And I think in a relationship, that's pretty inspiring as a relationship goal. A zero sum is a paradigm that says, well, if there is a winner, there has to be a loser. So there's two different ways of looking at things. And offline, this goes into a conversation we recently had. But we can talk about that offline, right? So it recalled to me a book that I had to read that I ended up appreciating. It was a book I normally wouldn't have read. It was called The Sum of Us by Heather McGhee. And in that, Heather McGhee argues around the main thesis of her book that there is this, she uses the history of grand public swimming pools in the United States to illustrate the destructive nature of zero-sum thinking. So I'm a history teacher, so allow me to go down memory lane here. During the first half of the 20th century, many American towns used tax dollars to build massive public pools that became the center of American life. I never experienced this. I grew up in a very small town. We had the lake, or you had the country club pool. I went to the lake. However, at that period of time, courts mandated that these public spaces must be integrated and shared equally with all citizens. There were some local governments across certain sections of the nation that made a drastic choice. Rather than integrating and opening them up as a shared resource, towns across America chose to drain their pools, fill them with concrete, and close them down completely. So I look at that as a historical event that demonstrates the zero-sum paradigm, which is the belief that a gain of one group automatically equals a loss for another. And the leaders who drain the pools, we assume, based upon their actions, that they believe that sharing their community space diminishes other people's status or enjoyment. And as a result of that fear, everyone lost. The pool went away. So families lost their beloved pools, funding for parks was slashed, and the entire community suffered around what was once an agreed upon public good. So the zero-sum mindset created a lose-lose situation for the entire municipalities who chose to do that. When we think of this concept in terms of habit 4, the win-win, the drained pools show us how cooperation can be, and approaching things from an equitable manner can be essential for mutual success. Equality, and if you think about this in terms of your parent-child relationship, equality is not a piece of pie where a slice given to one person means less for someone else, which McGee in her book calls it a solidarity dividend, which is the idea that you can accomplish much more together than apart. There could be an argument to say that if the towns embraced the fact that it's a win-win, you could keep the pools open, everybody would have continued enjoyment of the community benefits. And if parents and students adopt that win-win mindset, they realize that supporting each other or supporting another person's success actually expands the opportunities and resources available to everyone. Think about this. I'm trying to tell my 3-year-old and my 6-year-old, I don't think developmentally they get it yet, right? If we look at Erickson's stages of moral development, they're not going to get this, but perhaps in our families, there's the age and developmental appropriateness to say, when mommy and daddy spend all the time, or mommy and when the parents spend all their time cleaning up the toys from your mess, when you ask us, can we go outside? Can we go to the arcade? Can we go to the Knicks game? Well, we can't because we're so tired that we haven't cleaned it up from cleaning up all your toys. That's why we haven't been able to do the fun things with you. So that would be an example of trying to explore that win-win, that if you clean this up, you might get the opportunity to go to the Knicks game because we have the time and the energy and maybe the money that we didn't spend on another toy to go to. So that's just sometimes you're reading books at the same time and another book has a similar theme to it. I wanted to just bring that in there to help describe the win-win. The second habit in the public victory is seek first to understand. One of my favorite approaches to how I interact with all relationships, except sometimes with my kids. Those are sometimes the hardest ones to understand. Like why my daughter takes out her makeup all the time, her fake makeup, and writes on the walls. I don't understand that. But This is a parental paradigm shift, right? We're the adults, they're the children. We have the knowledge, we own the knowledge, we know what's good for them. They need to understand that,
Yeah.
right?
Brain development. We have to pass their brain development.
Yes, right.
Remember, I'm not there yet.
And that's our first instinct, is to correct what happened, is to tell them this is what they should have done. Again, when developmentally appropriate, and parents will know their children perhaps the best, the suggestion is to listen for the why before correcting the what. Covey argues that children are likely to be far more open to guidance if they feel that they are understood. We work on this with our educators all the time. Build that relationship with the kiddos in your class. They're going to be more likely to listen to you, to want to learn from you. The military does something interesting here on this, at least my experience in the Air Force. When I was in the Air Force, basic training, you had your main drill instructors, and these are the people who put the fear of a deity inside of you. They were never the ones in the classroom with you, because you did have academics in basic training. They were also never the ones at the firing range with you. And I asked, because one job that I was pursuing when I was in the Air Force, I was being recruited for, was to be a drill instructor. And that was one of the decisions that I had to make. Do I get out of the Air Force? Do I go in a different career field? Do I stay in and become a drill instructor? That was one of the choices. So I was doing my research. And actually, my drill instructor from when I went through was a recruiter for it. And I had the opportunity to ask, I said, why were you guys never the ones in the classroom? They said, how are you going to learn from somebody that you were afraid of? It made perfect sense. So the argument would be, I'm practicing seeking first to understand. Yeah. The argument would be, or the parallel would be, our children may feel more likely to interact with us, tell us why, seek our guidance if they know that we are going to try to understand where they're coming from first. And so Covey argues to listen first, monitor feelings, respond second. If you've done any work with the habits of the mind, which Art Costa and Bennett Kalick have done, this is for our educators at home. This is right in a habit of mind, which is what we try to teach students what to do when they don't know the answer to something. And there used to be 8 habits. I'm sure to sell more books, there's more habits now. But in the habits of mind, it's teach our students active listening. This goes right along with that. And so for the activity for that, it's just simply an active listening activity. Mm-hmm. And so this is a framework that you can use, which Covey calls the emotional mirror.
Remember the one I sent to you, the video of the kid?
Yes. Yes. No. And oftentimes when we have emotions, you're not going to be able to activate that, right? You may be flooded. You're not going to have the ability to do that. So this is something that Covey suggests you do when you're not in the active parenting mode, right, of responding to an issue. This is something that he argues you should practice, like all these exercises. Remember, habits become habits because they're practiced and perfected. So the first part is to share the frustration, to think of a non-family event where they had a difficult assignment, a social media issue, and Covey says, have the teen describe the situation and how it made them feel to the parent. And the parent has a very difficult job in the first part of the frustration share, is to listen. Do not interrupt. Do not try to fix it. Do not try to show empathy at that point in time by saying, listen, I've been there. This is how I handled it. You should do the same thing. And most importantly, Covey argues, do not judge the situation. If you've ever taken any courses in active listening, you'll probably see a pattern here, right? Mm-hmm. The mirror phase is once the parent does that, the parent should mirror back what they heard. So if I heard you correctly, if I'm understanding you, this is what happened. This is how you felt because of this. Am I correct? And allow the teen to respond. Yes. Oh no, Dad, Mom, you missed it a little bit. There is a rule here. If the parent does what parents do and they begin to parent, this protocol empowers the teen to say nicely, well, please just mirror me. And that's the key phrase to saying you're going into that judgment. You're going into that fixer role. And the parent has to try again until the teen agrees that they've been fully heard, or the child. Obviously, our book is called for teens, but we're trying to say that this could be applied when developmentally appropriate. And then the final aspect of this is to switch roles. And so if you think about the overall the public victory of trying to model for our teens, help them to develop habits that are going to be successful when they leave their house or when they move on from their parent-child relationship of what we know of parents trying to parent, and they become adults. This is a way to help them develop those own skills for themselves. Again, if my wife is watching this, she's probably saying, well, you don't do that with our kids. I know. I'm going to admit fully to it, but I will try. The next habit of the public victory is to synergize. Covey says that synergy would be akin to 1 + 1 = 3, and that you can support your team by valuing their unique perspectives. I have a pretty good background in tech. Ever since I was a little kid, I was always able to figure out the VCR. I was able to figure out all the buttons that you needed to be pushed because I didn't have that fear. I think my grandparents at that time and parents at the time had a fear of pressing buttons and breaking it. Either I didn't care or I just knew that it wouldn't break it. Probably was I didn't care. So many of our children have characteristics, have attributes that can be beneficial if we tap into it. And that's what Covey is arguing here, is that tap into those attributes to help create a synergist relationship. So when solving family plans or problems, like vacation plans or house rules, invite kids to the table. There was a concept in social studies education a few years ago that said, how are we supposed to teach students the concept of democracy when most classrooms are not a democratic state? And the argument was, within the confines of the four walls of that classroom, when you have students, make it a democratic classroom. And the first thing that they said is to help students add to the classroom rules so it's their classroom. Again, what's that?
And we've seen that in
Yeah.
districts. At least, especially, I would say it's in K through 3, I've seen it. I don't know if it happened in 4th, but
Yep.
I know K through 3 for Bryce. They did.
And the idea is, again, similarly, if they're part of that process, they're going to be more invested in it. Yeah. And Covey is arguing that in a parent relationship, we even see this in the military. When you are part of, or in my leadership experience, I tend to bring in as many minds as possible, particularly those individuals who have to carry it out, because I want them to be invested into it, or into whatever they're being asked to do. So the prompt I have for this habit is, think of a friction point that you have. Morning routines are a major friction point in my household. Why? Because I'm in charge of it. My wife is out the door very early to get to start seeing patients and to start her job. So if I stopped being the boss of that problem and invited my child to solve it, what would they do? Again, mine are 3 and 6. I know exactly what my son would say. I don't have to go to school. I can sleep in, right? So find the sweet spot, or find a topic that is appropriate for your unique situation, and try to help the children or the child be a part of the solution. And Covey argues that synergy will help go back to that emotional bank account and put deposits there. So that's just the suggestion there. This has gone a lot quicker than I thought, but right. It was built into the time frame. But the public victory ways that Covey says you can support these 3 habits primarily is to practice empathy in that listening daily. Practice the win-win model in problem solving, right? We often have that. For you to learn, you're going to have a consequence. Does your child see that consequence as a win? Probably not. Not the long term, right? So is there a way that you could still instill expectations, right? We as parents, I'm sure our first goal is for safety, right? So I've known parents who have, like my classroom, I had 3 main rules in my classroom: respect others, respect learning time, and give substitutes a fair chance. Right? I always thought substitutes never got a fair chance. right? So those are the three main rules, and everything else went along with it, right? Outside of those three rules, are there ways that you can find areas to bring kids into the problem-solving mix? Encourage those collaborative family goals. One low leverage thing is we always hear in disaster preparedness or emergency preparedness, make kids a part of the response. Give the kids something to do. If there's an emergency, Joey, you're going to go make sure that the dog is with us, right? You're going to go grab the flashlight. You're making them part of the response. Number one, it helps them not be as scared. It gives them something to do, and it makes them feel a part of it. And always celebrate your child's unique strengths. So that not that deficit paradigm that I'm saying my son is not a healthy eater. Well, my son knows how to relax. That's what my wife made me say. There are some people who don't know how to relax at this point in his life. My son knows how to relax. Thank you for those of you who joined us remotely. Hope you found this insightful. We will continue on with our next topic of Parent University that is still grounded in our anchor text, and we'll focus on the digital environment and how we can support our teens there. So thank you.